There's something different about this over 50 channel. Specifically, you are seeing an animation, not a real person. We all wear masks, darlings. Every one of us. Mary's is made of pixels rather than makeup. The Fab does look a lot like Mary, although the Fab is a great deal more stylish. Mary is kind of a disaster most days, and she mostly doesn't care. When she does care and makes an effort, she looks fine. Her attitude is, who wants to spend an hour on hair and makeup when the ideal day means never leaving the house? Back to why you're seeing an animation rather than a human. The reason for this is that 1,000 years ago, Mary studied illustration with the goal of becoming an animator. Well, as many of you know, life sometimes gets in the way of dreams. Those dreams don't have to disappear forever. Mary hid her dream at the bottom of a toolbox of her pickup truck, safely under her rolled sleeve of proto-wrenches. At some point, a gallon of 1540 leaked, and the dream got a bit greasy. But a soak in some Dawn and a day or two in the sunshine to dry, and the dream was almost as good as new. Maybe a bit softer, due to the wear and tear, but just as vibrant. It's been a while. I've been busy. I took a week off of work, and I spent most of that week playing on my computer. I was going to lie and say cleaning house, but I did some of that, and working in my yard. I did very little of that, but sometimes you just got to take some time and do what works for you. That said, I want to talk today about how you can accomplish really amazing things, and part of it is your attitude. The Fab has observed Mary in some pretty tough situations, that Mary always kept her chin up. She called it hanging on to her tough, but I think Mary was naturally a happy person, and it took an awful lot to make her unhappy. Maybe that is why she persevered and made it through, but you're not alone. If you're not naturally a happy person, there are some things you can do to make your life a little bit better, and that's what I want to talk about today. What the Fab would like to say today is, this isn't just about slapping on a happy face and calling it a day. That isn't what this is about at all. Yes, there are times when you have to slap on a happy face and just give through it, and that smile, believe it or not, actually helps. But there's more to it than that. What the Fab would like to talk to you about today is what really makes a positive mindset tick. And she's going to try to get into some details. She did some research. She put links to the article she read below in the and I can't think of what I call it. What could senior moment in the description. You'd think I'd be able to come up with that word, but the Fab sometimes wanders. That said, it's a mix of references, some things that are a little lighter, like 10 things to help you maintain a positive attitude, and then I also included some research articles, all of which were absolutely fascinating. But if you've just got a minute or two, there is some lighter reading that may help. If you're one of those people that has to know all the details, there's some of that too. Again, look down in the description. There is an interesting article about the genetic component to happiness. There are people that have a little bit of an edge. Your genes might have something to do with your overall attitude. Now, that's not to say that you're doomed to be an Eeyore, but there are people, and the Fab suspects Mary is one of them, that have a genetic edge. They're skewed towards happy. But that's okay, because happiness is a skill. It's a skill that can be developed and practiced consistently. It really helps. As Fab said before, it's not about pretending everything is sunshine and rainbows and putting on rose-colored glasses. Taking a positive attitude, developing a positive attitude. It's kind of like armor. When you go out into the world, and it's not like a light switch, happy, sad. Happy, sad. It's more like a dimmer switch. And you can scale it up and down depending on what the situation is. And it isn't even really happiness, it's more positivity. Now, if you were to look at Mary, Fab does, she isn't always walking around smiling. She has her moments. Sometimes she's just kind of there. But again, it's that dimmer switch. No point in burning up all your dopamine while you're scrubbing floors. I mean, go ahead if you want to. If that's your thing and scrubbing floors makes you happy, yay. I think we discussed in a previous chat that house cleaning isn't Mary's thing, and she takes a very strong cup of coffee and really good music and has a list. But anyway, back to developing the positive attitude. And the whole dimmer switch concept, it's like everybody has negative things that happen in their life. Sometimes it rains, sometimes things just aren't going right. The car breaks down unexpectedly. Those things are real, and having a positive attitude doesn't mean ignoring those things. It means, and this is where the dimmer switch concept comes in, how much light are you going to shine on that? Personally, if the car is broken and you have to go somewhere, yeah, it gets a little light. You have to deal with that immediately. Putting it off is only going to make things worse. But something like windows needing to be cleaned. Yes, you need to do it. You put it on your list. You get to it. The next time you're doing extra chores, I mean, aside from sweeping and vacuuming and picking up, not in that order, picking up, sweeping, vacuuming, then you wash the floors. Then you wash the windows if you've scheduled yourself some time. Why am I babbling? During all of that, the Fab has taught Mary not to focus on the things she doesn't want to do, the things that are kind of horrible. Kind of dim the lights on that part and think about something positive, like when I'm done with these chores that I absolutely have to do, then I can take an hour or two and work on an animation or do some sketching or take the dogs for a walk or walk around the backyard and just enjoy the sunshine and the beautiful green, that sort of thing. Dimmer switch. You can choose how much attention you focus on different aspects of your life, and focusing on the happy, on the pleasant, even though you're acknowledging the not so great stuff, because you don't want to ignore it, makes a difference. Essentially, it's choosing what you think about, and believe it or not, you can actually do that. You can choose to focus on positive things, or you can choose to focus on meditative things. And believe it or not, focusing on the positive things changes your brain. Your brain is like a network. Picture fishnet stockings. You know how all the different threads work together to cover your legs? If you remember fishnet stockings, they've probably been out since the 60s, but something like that. Or, let's see, what else is kind of... Or, like the mesh in a colander or yourself, your brain is a lot like that. Not that evenly distributed, but you have all these neurotransmitters that connect with each other. And with practice, you can determine which pathways you go to in your mind. The ones that get the most use become easier and easier to follow. So if you choose positive thoughts, your brain is going to eventually naturally incline towards positive thoughts. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, and the Fab is not a doctor and she hasn't studied this in school, but what she's gathered is that neurotransmitters go zipping along these pathways, and when you do something pleasurable for you, something that gives you pleasure, your brain releases dopamine, and dopamine is the feel-good chemical. And you can learn how to trigger that. I mean, that first cup of coffee in the morning. Oh, big dopamine rush. Yay, hot steaming coffee. But for you, it could be a piece of chocolate, or a run, or playing with your dogs, or playing with your cat, or watching your cat play with the dogs, and then get mad and huff off. Well, that's kind of distressing. But if you know it's all for fun, then it doesn't much matter. But the Fab has 2 dogs and a cat, and they get along really well. And just so you know, even if you're not one of those people that's naturally wired towards positivity, you can make changes to your brain. You could rewire your pathways, believe it or not. You're not just a puppet on a string. Think of your brain like a canvas and you're the artist. You decide what to emphasize, what to de-emphasize, what colors to use. And it takes practice, but you will get there. Now, rewiring your brain isn't like flipping a switch. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it's small steps. And some of you can roll your eyes when you hear about this, but one of the major ways to help rewire your brain is gratitude. You can write in a gratitude journal, but if that's too cheesy, you could jot it on sticky notes. You could just write it in your mind, but the best way to get information into your brain, believe it or not, is to actually physically write it. Not just physically write it, but if you know, write it in cursive, because you don't lose contact with the paper, and the action of writing cursive works with your brain to help you remember. And what you remember becomes what you think, and what you think becomes you. Essentially, by acknowledging the good things that happened, the positive things in your life, the things that bring you joy, you can train your brain to look for that. Some other ways to boost your positivity, besides a gratitude journal. The next one is movement, and that exercise word. You could do formal exercise. You could take a walk. You could dance. You could shut all the curtains so that nobody can see you. Turn on your favorite tunes and boogie around the living room. It's amazing how good that is for you. You don't have to have anybody watching. You don't have to walk where everybody can see you. If you have to, buy a treadmill. Close the shades, but move. The Fab has been after Mary about that lately because she has a sit-down job, and she went from being pretty badass about 7 years ago to being very soft. And the Fab thinks she needs to work on that, so move in whatever way that makes you happy. Don't pick out something that makes you miserable. I mean, if you know that you're going to be miserable walking on a treadmill, don't do it. If walking out in your neighborhood makes you happy, go ahead. If you can't walk in your neighborhood, dance. Dance, my darlings, dance. What's the connection between exercise and happiness? Exercise releases endorphins, but it also boosts other neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Exercise gives your brain a happiness cocktail. And it doesn't take all that long. 10 minutes here and there. And you're good.
Positivity is not about denying negative emotions. It's choosing to focus on the upbeat things. And then you should have some strategies. If you're feeling particularly down, especially when times are tough, have a morning routine. Remember the Fab talked about a routine earlier? Essentially, what you're looking to do is create little pockets of joy throughout your day. It doesn't have to be fancy. 5 minutes of meditation, listen to your favorite song. Find what works for you. Read a couple chapters of a book. Look out the window. One of the coolest things about positivity is it's contagious. If you work on being positive, it kind of floats through the air to the people around you. And eventually you will find that people are more positive around you when you are more positive. So essentially, walking around with a positive attitude and a smile, you know what, you've run into people like that. You just feel good being around them. And there's science to back that up. Studies have shown that happiness can actually spread through social networks like a virus. So essentially, by focusing on your own positivity, you're not just doing yourself a favor, you're doing everyone around you a favor. Essentially, your happiness, working on positivity, can create an upward spiral in your group, your family, your friend group. At work, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's just choose kindness and positivity in little chunks throughout the day, and eventually it will become a habit. And it's not magic. And like the Fab said earlier, it's a skill. Start small, keep at it, and eventually you will find that you have improved not only your life, but the life of people around you. You have the power to make the world a brighter place. One smile, one kind act, one dance in the dark at a time. The Fab would like to thank you for spending this time with her. She hopes that she brought a smile to your face. And remember, little steps, little steps. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember to do the YouTube things like subscribe, share if you care to, or not. It's up to you. But one thing I do want you to remember, darlings, you are wonderful exactly the way you are. Have a lovely day.